I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations. And you're not in this world to live up to mine. Bruce Lee. Hello everyone. I was listening to the Flat Earth debates, and they're probably doing their after show right now, and I was getting ready to go out scoping out where there might be some spring turkey. But I want to get some coffee in, and I just figured, hey, why not clarify this thing? So what I am going to do is share the screen. There we go. Now what's interesting, well, first let's just use Google. Everyone's going to use Google. I think I have a problem with the dictionary term that Google brings up. And we'll start at belief. Belief shows that, okay, it can be seen. The first one is an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. I think that's only part of it. But neither here nor now. Well, actually, it is here or now. Anyways. Expectation, a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. So expectation is very similar to belief. The difference is that it's kind of a future, it's an unknown that you're believing will happen. And now if you put in the what's the best way to put it? So if you put, one thing I like to do is to, when I explain a word, is I'll replace a word with the actual definition in another definition. For example, expectation could be an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists in the future. That pretty much sums up expectation. But what I don't like about this is that means it could just be any statement, assertion that you make, and it's true, or that it exists, and it's accepted. It gets very vague. Now, when you click on the Wikipedia, again, it's very common source that a lot of people like to look into. I think this is a better statement when it says belief is the state of mind in which a person thinks something to be the case regardless of empirical evidence to prove that something is the case with factual certainty. And another way of defining belief sees it as a mental representation of an attitude positively oriented towards the likelihood of something being true. Yeah, I guess I accept that. I like this definition a little bit better, and that was by Justin Premer. It's the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Now, when I think about belief, this is what I have in mind. And when I say, and I'll speak for myself because James Johnson isn't here, I'm not someone who believes. I am not sorry. It's just the way it is. Things could be easier. I think if I had the same mentality as the herd, maybe things might be easier, but that's not the case. So it is what it is. I lived a pretty hard life. Made me tough. It is what it is. I think it might have been negative then. It's positive now. We'll see. So if we so if we go to Wikipedia, there's many different types in science, music, but no generalization and expectation. The epistemic definition is, in the case of uncertainty, expectation is what is considered the most likely to happen. An expectation, which is a belief that is centered on the future, may or not be realistic. So, if we go ahead and base belief on this, which I would say is the best example of or definition of what a belief is, because it becomes less vague. So I'll give you an example that was mentioned on the Nathan Oakley's Flat Earth Debate show. Someone asks James Johnson, I'll say if it's asked to me, driving in your car, you're believing that when you drive your car that it's going to work. That's a belief. And well, for me, it's not it's more likely that it'll happen because I've experienced going into the car and driving it and it working. There was no indications that it would no longer work. Hi Kathy B, how's it going? And while it may be a belief, and it is an expectation that it will continue, it's a little bit different than saying that when I drive the car will transform automatically into a Pegasus, which is a horse with wings that flies. I mean, there's never been an experience where that has occurred. There's likeliness of, I would say, for me, 0% of it ever happening or occurring. So my expectation of it would be very, very unlikely. More like never happening, but who knows? It might happen. So there's also a difference. That's why when I say I don't have a belief, and a lot of times when I talk to a lot of different people and I look into things, just because I talk about it doesn't mean I believe in it. I like to think of it of a certain way, and if I did choose to see which might be more likely, I'll go and say that, but not that necessarily I believe that it is and it will happen or whatever. For example, that a lot of religious people, we'll just pick Christians, and I'm not pointing them out as anything negative for this example, state that Jesus will return, and that is an expectation, that is a belief. There's never been evidence that, there's only one evidence, I guess, or at least it's just at least account that it's in the Bible, that he will return again and fulfill a lot of different things in the future. But it's difficult for me to believe that, because I've never that's why I'm an agnostic. I've never experienced it. No one else alive has. No one else has seen Jesus Christ, except in pictures and in drawings and paintings and sculptures and things like that. So it's just, you have to believe that that's what Jesus looks like. But then say someone claims to be Jesus Christ? Do you believe that person to be Jesus Christ? I'm gonna say my expectation of you believing in that person claiming to be Jesus Christ is that you're gonna say no. It's gonna be most likely 99.9% no. The person claiming to be Jesus Christ is gonna have to fulfill a lot of things in order to convince you and others that that person really is Jesus Christ. And again, it's you, and you can understand why, because there's a certain level of belief where you won't go past. There's a certain amount of evidence or empirical evidence that you need to justify the statement being made by someone else. Now, there is a belief that in religion that, yeah, Jesus Christ existed, Jesus Christ will come eventually and fulfill the things that was mentioned. That is a belief. And again, it's the same as for me when someone else is stating they are Jesus Christ and you're saying, no, you're not. It's the same. Or how would you know? You would have to have that person convince you somehow. So expectations, they're part of belief system, but I think, or I wouldn't say system, just it's very much a belief, but what will most likely happen in future. Belief in itself is dictated just a state of mind. If a person thinks something to be the case, regardless of empirical evidence. So, for example, I can say the sun is going to rise every day and it's going to set every day. I hate using that term as a belief because so far every day the sun has risen and the sun has set. So I don't like using the term belief because we already know from experience, and everyone else who lives here on Earth experiences the same thing. Unless it's a sunny, it's a foggy day and you can't see past the clouds, or maybe it's a 24-hour day or 24-hour night, whatever. But you'll understand that, hey, okay, but still the sun is there. The sun didn't disappear and didn't. You get my point. That the sun is still there. So to call that a belief is stretching it, because we've experienced that it keeps occurring, and there's no reason for it not to occur. There hasn't been some catalyst to say, hey, the sun's not going to appear the next day. It's like, oh, really? What makes you say that? Oh, it's just my belief. And it's like, okay. Well, do you have any... Well, okay. Do you have any evidence? I mean, is it just a belief? It's like, yeah, it's just belief. Okay, someone's just saying it. That's what I consider belief. Now, when someone says, hey, the sun isn't going to appear the next day, and it's like, what? Why? And they give out a reasonable explanation. It's saying, it's like, well, I find some issues with that reasoning or the evidence provided. So you can contest it with whatever evidence that they provide, but at least they're providing some evidence that you could look into. A belief is something that that some beliefs, there's no evidence that can be provided, and that's a whole nother thing. And then that goes with math. For example, 1 + 1 = 2, or maybe let's use this: 1 + 2 = 3. So that it's not a belief when if A plus B equals C and A equals 1 and B equals 2, that C, what is C? It's not a belief that C is going to equal 3, or an expectation that C is going to equal 3. replace the values. A equals 1, B equals 2, so 1 plus 2 equals 3. And that's just mathematics, algebra. So it's not a belief that C is going to be 3. It's a conclusion. It's almost likely, 100% likely that it's going to be 3. I wouldn't call that a belief, but within the context of how belief and expectation is structured and used, as far as what the definitions are, it can be a little bit fuzzy. But I think it's really up to the individuals to go more into a lot of these definitions, because unfortunately the definitions are pretty vague. And let me read out Kathy B. Epistemic equals epistemology, the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. That's a good one. So it's tough. And Slick James says, I don't believe. You know, same here. I don't, but I see things a different way than, and say things a different way than James does. And I think people, and he does try to be concise. At least that's what it appears to me, and nothing wrong with that. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, so I won't say too much about that. But for me, it's trying to distinguish between beliefs and what really occurs, what is definitely going to occur, what is most likely to occur, than what is very, very unlikely to almost never occurring. For example, I can state with 99.9% certainty that every human being alive right now is going to die in the future. That is an expectation, a belief. You can claim it as that, but there's certainty to that, because everyone that's lived in the past, say 200 years ago, has died, as far as we know. And so we can we could probably assume that as a fact, that no one has beaten death so far, or cheated death to stay alive longer than that. Who knows? Maybe there are vampires, but that's another thing. That's another belief. So there are things that are most likely to happen because they've happened. It's been witnessed. It's been experienced. Not just one person, but many. But just because many people have experienced it doesn't mean that the people who haven't experienced it can claim that as being true. So it is up to the individual, and I think it's best quoted from Bruce Lee. You know, it's not for me to live up to your expectations, and it's not for you to live up to mine. It's a good way to go about things, and that's why a lot of Americans, they like the First Amendment. They like the Bill of Rights. Believe what you want to believe, but don't enforce your beliefs on me. Don't let your beliefs interfere with my life, and I won't have my beliefs interfere with yours. We're good. Just leave it at that. And there's a lot more things that I would like to say on tangents, but I wanted to keep this short, and it was a 20-minute short, so that's okay. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have a good day or night wherever you are at.